1 cup per pound of meat. I've got 3 pounds of meat. I've got 3 cups of rice. I always use the long grain. I like Carolina, but long grain white rice. I always wash the rice and clear most of the starch out of it. Washing it several times. It doesn't have to go all the way clear, but it does get most of the starchiness out of it. I've got 3 different pieces of meat here. It's all lamb. You can buy it already prepared like this. It is fine ground. It does work. I prefer the ones I do myself. I get the lamb shoulder, cut it up, and grind it coarse, leaving a little bit of the fat in it. Now I've noticed in the groceries, a lot of the stores have this, and this is also 100% lamb. It's a little more fatty than what I would prepare, but it does work for this. This is for people that don't want to buy their meat and grind it and go through all that. It is possible to make Sendmanat, these rice and chickpea sausages, with the meat that you can buy in the groceries. Some people actually mix it with beef. You want to put a little bit of beef. I wouldn't put more than half and half, but it's usually better with more lamb in it. And I also use the 7 spices that you can buy at the Syrian market. Syrian spices, 7 spices. It's a mixture of 7 different spices that we use in a lot of our foods. I'm going to just put maybe 2 tablespoons in my hand. You can measure if you wish. My kids like it spicy, so I put that much and maybe even a little more. I add salt. It's 1 tablespoon. Now, when you boil these, it does take a lot of the salt, so I'll probably put about 3 tablespoons of salt in. And that way it won't dilute all the saltiness taste. And then I just sprinkle some, maybe a teaspoon of black pepper. That's it for the spices. I'll now include this rice. Mix it in real good with all the spices. And you're going to find that it's a little dry, so you're going to use water to keep the mixture moist, and so that it can easily slide into the casings. I have hog casings. When I make this meal, I use the hog casings because they're large. I've opened a 19-ounce can of Progresso chickpeas or garbanzo beans. You can use any brand. I like these because they're nice and big, they stay firm, and it's a large can, and my children like a lot of chickpeas in these sausages. I am going to rinse them out, get all the settlement that's down in the bottom of the can before I add them to these things. See, some of them stay in the can, so you got to really get them out and rinse all that stuff out of there. Okay. If you see a few of the skins, just pull them out. They don't have to go in, but you don't have to stand there and take the skins off of all of them. While the water is cold, I'm going to fill this up so that I have it to use when I need to pour it into the sausage casing. Because the meat is kind of dry, I'm going to pour a little bit of water to moisten it. You don't want to put too much because you're going to be putting a lot of it in when you make the casing, when you stuff the casing to make the sausage. You got to really make sure you mix all the spices and the rice and the chickpeas very well. a little while now. This is a little sticky because I've used the grocery store lamb, and it's usually a little greasier. If it was all mine, it wouldn't be as sticky as this. Kind of separates a little easier. But like I say, it all works fine, and it's a way to make it without having to do your own preparation of the lamb. Okay, I've mixed it pretty well. Like I say, it looks kind of sticky and sloppy right now, but that's because of the extra fat that they put in when you buy the lamb already prepared, ready to use for your cooking. I keep my casing in salt water. A lot of salt, really, not really salt water, but there is water in there. When I get the ball of casing, I separate them all and try to cut them into about a foot, or a yard rather. Now I have the casing. I'm going to rinse all the salt off of it. I'm going to find an end, and I'm going to open the casing. Finding a hole takes a little while. There we go. So I'm running the water directly through that. You can do it once, you can do it twice. All you're doing is getting the salt from the inside. Sorry if there's a little bit of water in there. It'll help the meat slide better. Now I've opened up the casing. I use my 2 fingers. I make sure the casing is straight. And I begin to stuffing in between my 2 fingers. Looks like fun, gets tiresome after a while. You don't want to put a chickpea in the beginning because then it'll just pop right out the other end. But as you stuff the meat, you make sure you add a chickpea here and there. Now when I'm ready to push it down, it doesn't slide so easily unless I take a little bit of water and put that in there. Then you'll see it'll just slide right down to the end. If you do ask a butcher to grind the meat for you, he will cut lamb shoulder and ask him to grind it like a chili cut. They'll grind it coarse, and some butchers will do that for you. They'll cut the meat, trim it, but you do want a little bit of the fat on there when you use the shoulder. Leg of lamb is a little bit too lean and a waste to make sausages with it. This type of sausage. If the casing does happen to rip, take your fingers out, pull it down to the rip, cut it off, and continue on. There's no problem with that. Buying the casing is difficult sometimes, but you can go to any place that makes their own sausage and ask them for hog casing. Okay, we're at the point now where the casing's almost all filled into a tube. I'm going to lay it out on the table. What I want to do is kind of even them out so it's the same thickness all the way. Get all the air bubbles out. Now, my mom used to flatten them. People have a fit because they say I make it too flat, but I think that's a good way to make the meat evenly all the way around. What I'm doing is tying a little knot in the casing at the bottom of one side. Little difficult at first. And you tie that knot. You bring the meat up to that knot, and then I kind of make sure I even out all the meat so that it's not clumpy in one spot and empty in the other. Like I say, some people wonder why I flatten it, but it's just the way I started doing it. I'm taking a little too much in there. Now I'm going to push it back and tie this knot on the other end. Whoops. Not too easy when they're all sticky and slimy. Now what I want to do is lay it flat, make it all even. Try to find the middle, pinch the middle. Then I'm going to twist it. 2 or 3 times. Okay, line it up again. And you could see about how many sausages you could get. So I'm only going to make these a little bit big, so I'm going to pinch it there and pinch them here. And then I fold over at one point, bring the other end through the hole, and you've got it tied. At the end, I'm going to bring it over, take it around once, bring it through, and there's your sausages. You got 6 on that piece. Next, I rinse them all off in cold water, very cold water, and so that they cook properly. You squeeze it a little bit. Whoops. This one didn't get tied. Yeah, it did. Squeeze it a little bit and you prick it. I prick it twice with the fork and break the casing. That way the water seeps in and cooks the rice, besides all the water that we had poured in before. So I'm just pricking one little hole 2 times in each one. I've got them all stuffed and rinsed and pricked. I'm covering with water. You have to have a good amount because it's going to absorb a lot of the water with the rice. Okay, I'm going to put it on high and let it boil. When it comes to a boil, I'll lower it to maybe a medium low and let it boil until all the rice is cooked, and then I'll take them out and test one. As it starts to boil, you're going to create a foam, the grease, and we'll just take that and skim it right off. And make more, but you can keep doing this as it cooks. It's not boiling yet. It's been about 15 minutes or so, and we're just going to keep leaving it boil, and we're going to make sure that they stay covered with all the water. They always have to be covered. It's starting to get a good boil now, so I'm going to move it to a medium. Well, I've poured the water off, and here we have all the sausages cooked. A nice bunch of Sendmanat. As my mom and dad used to do, we used to do when I was young, we would fry them in a little bit of oil or Crisco, and then serve them with plain yogurt or yogurt and cucumbers. I do trim off the little ends that were left with the casing, and I do cut them in half, or separate them. I do separate them and put them in a bag. They can be put in the freezer. They can be refrigerated for several days. Of course, at my house they don't last very long. And then we have all our little sausages. That's it.